Hey folks, my name is Mo Amir and this is VANCOLOUR, British Columbia's bona fide culture and politics TV talk show. Tonight we're asking, why does this keep happening? We're going to look at the never-ending cycle of encampments and decampments of unhoused people in Vancouver. We're going to look at why human feet keep washing up on BC shores. And of course, we're going to look at commercial trucks hitting overpasses in BC, costing taxpayers millions, delaying commuters, impeding first responders, and putting public safety at risk. Why does this keep happening? Here to explain is the BC NDP MLA for Victoria Swan Lake and BC's Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure, Minister Rob Fleming. Minister Fleming, what an honor. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me.
So I feel like every British Columbian, every time that they open up the newspaper or watch, the news hour, they see a story about a commercial truck hitting road infrastructure, usually overpasses, particularly in the lower mainland. So answer the big question. Why does this keep happening?
Well, if the question is, what is the excuse? The answer is there isn't one. Not any good ones. It's never been easier, quite frankly, to get a permit for an overheight load that is being transported around our region, around our province. It's never been easier to measure that load with digital tools.
Right. There's apps and there's GPS. They can map out their routes, right?
There are things today that didn't exist 5-10 years ago that make it immeasurably easier. One explanation may be the volume of commercial traffic in British Columbia. Obviously, that has gone up as the province has increased in population and as our supply chains have become even more important to the rest of Canada. We have the busiest port here in Metro Vancouver. In fact, its volumes are larger than all the other ports in Canada combined together. But again, that doesn't explain it either. So we're looking for explanations through data. We're the only province that's keeping data on infrastructure collisions. But we're also working really closely with the BC Trucking Association and other industry partners because they're fed up with it just as much as, people trying to get home from a long day at work or trying to get to a show or wherever they're going to go. They're stuck in congestion that should never have happened because, an overpass
Is
was
this
hit.
unique to British Columbia, or are we seeing this in other places around the world or in North America?
We're definitely seeing it in other parts of Canada. And in fact, we're leading a national discussion.
Well, we're number one, right?
Well, we could be. We're the only one that actually tracks it, so it's hard to say.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
But I mean, if you want to surf the headlines and look at cities like Winnipeg and Saskatoon, they've had some high-profile accidents recently that have done the same kind of damage that we've experienced in places like Delta, North Vancouver, and some of those high-profile incidents recently in Metro Vancouver. We got to be very surgical about this, though. This is a small problem causing an outsized headache for everybody.
Sure.
There are about 100,000 truck movements every day in British Columbia. That's about 3 million a month, 36 million a year, if you want to do the math. And we've had 30 collisions of concern in the last 2 years.
Wow.
So it's a tiny fraction of the industry that is irresponsible, that is not measuring twice or deviating from routes that were approved based on the permit they have. Again, there's no excuses, though, because it's never been easier to transport that cargo safely. So this is why the trucking industry wants to crack down, too. I mean, normally you'd think they would stand together, but their drivers are losing money. Their companies are losing business by being stuck in the same traffic that you and I are when something like this occurs. So we are working very collaboratively with, again, the BC Trucking Association. And we've said, look, we got to come down hard on this. We got to make it really, really expensive. We've got to, have the highest disincentives possible. We now have the highest fines in Canada.
And how big are those fines now?
They're not big enough. They're $545. So they've
that's nothing.
They've quintupled, since a month ago. But we may take them higher. We're working on that. That will require amendments to legislation. More important, though, than fines are a new tool that we've developed for ourselves that I announced in December, which is grounding an entire fleet where there's a significant safety concern based on one incident. So we have a couple of trucking companies right now that are under suspension. They cannot move a single thing in BC while a safety investigation is going on, which can take some weeks. And obviously that runs into, huge dollars per day.
Sure.
That sends out the strongest message, a lot stronger than fines could.
But touching on fines, I mean, some of the damage that's cost that ends up being incurred is like millions of dollars. But then you're talking about, a couple $100 for a fine. Why can't there be a system where if a trucking company is responsible, they have to pay the cost of repair, or their insurance has to pay the cost of repair? Why can't we have that? Because I think there are just a lot of British Columbians that are really frustrated by being put at risk on the roads.
Yeah, British Columbians shouldn't be, paying for it twice. They built the infrastructure and then paying to repair it. And we do go after aggressively recoveries from third-party insurers for sure. So we've got files open on all the cases that we've been discussing here, and we do make recoveries. Having said that, it's still an economic cost to the reliability of our transportation network, to the cost of everyone's time.
Yeah.
I mentioned other trucks waiting and commuters getting to and from work, but think of contractors and workers getting to and from a job site, lost time, all of that. So that's why it needs to stop. It's entirely preventable. Again, we've invested time, resources, money into creating tools that make it really simple. But we have some high-profile incidents where there's still a couple of outlier, careless drivers causing havoc on the roads.
When an incident like this happens, how does the investigation process start? Like, do you go to the trucking company and say, "Hey, did you actually map out the route that you were supposed to take? How did this? Is there an investigation that takes place?"
There are, generally by two agencies.
Okay.
The Ministry of Transportation has the Commercial Vehicle Safety Enforcement Unit. So they run all the truck weigh stations. They do mobile enforcement throughout the province. And of course the RCMP or a municipal police force, who are usually first to attend the scene of an accident. The investigation looks at the vehicle, looks at the conditions, looks at the damage, and looks at the safety record of the carrier, looks at the driver's driving record, those sorts of things. May make arrests based on that.
That was my next question. At what point does this negligence become criminal?
That's based on the investigation. If there's a determination that the negligence was in fact criminal, then the RCMP will continue that investigation and forward it to Crown Counsel potentially. And the CVSE investigation is really around, is there a public safety concern from a company? Is there a pattern of a company or a particular driver being involved in multiple accidents? Mm-hmm. And are there consequences that flow from that, either loss of license, suspension of the carrier's license, or even the entire safety certificate? It's a privilege to drive here. To get that safety certificate requires you to take on a number of obligations to protect each and every one of us that's on the roads. And if they've violated the terms of that safety certificate, it can be pulled. And we've said very clearly it will be pulled.
Yeah. You said that your ministry does conduct these investigations. So is there a common thread in these truck accidents that we're seeing in terms of why they happened?
The common thread right now is there are thousands and thousands of commercial trucking companies in BC. There are perhaps a dozen or 2 dozen that are involved in this.
Okay.
The data is telling us that it's...
So these are repeat offenders.
Repeat offenders.
To use the words of your opposition.
Yeah, well, yeah. Often it's the same company involved in multiple collisions with our infrastructure. And in some cases, it may be the same driver.
The same driver?
We're looking for all those kinds of patterns, because what we want to do is basically protect the pride and professionalism and reputation of the 99.999% of drivers who work safely, and are proud of their work, go out each and every day, drive in very difficult conditions that you and I would probably be a little bit afraid to do.
Absolutely,
they're truck
it's a
drivers.
tough job.
They're people driving over the Coquihalla right now, chaining up and doing it safely and working in adverse weather conditions. BC has incredible topography that makes for very difficult driving conditions. It's why we brought in the toughest licensing requirements in the country. We have a new mandatory entry-level training program for all new entrants into the commercial driving industry. We've taken a couple of other steps too. We know that speed can be a contributing factor in these collisions. So starting in April, basically there's a factory installed speed limiter in every truck engine. and the top speed will max out at 105 kilometers
Oh, interesting.
an hour. Yeah.
Well, Minister, I know that this has caused you a lot of headaches, but I appreciate your efforts in hopefully reversing this trend of trucks hitting overpasses. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
I'd love to be back on his show and love to not be talking about this.
Absolutely.
And,
Can't wait for
We're
it.
going to keep working on that.
We'll do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Folks, that's BC's Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure, Rob Fleming. Now, after some business, anytime the city of Vancouver decamps unhoused people from a park or street, a new encampment pops up somewhere else in the city, and this endless cycle has repeated itself for years. Why does this keep happening instead of looking for more permanent solutions? A Vancouver City Councillor will explain up next.